Good morning, Lo. And Kuzongpo to all the participants. Honorable Tsokpan, members of parliament, a lot of my friends, common faces that I see here, and ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this important conference. So I'll be talking about clientelism and accountability in Bhutanese politics, and I'll be really rushing because I have more number of slides. If you have any questions, please keep it for the floor. And before I start, thank you, Okinga, for being our moderator. So in this presentation, I'll be mainly talking about, clientelism in Bhutanese politics. I'll explain what that is. Now, the whole idea behind this presentation is to build a discourse. I'm not an expert on clientelism. I'm a journalist by profession, but I think all of us have the right to talk about issues. That's what the essence of democracy is. The opportunity to contribute to the national discourse. And I hope we'll be able to achieve through my presentation some sort of discourse on the idea of clientelism. Also, I'll be touching on political leadership and the idea of moral accountability for failed or poor quality public projects, which leads to leakage in public resources. And then what do we do to discourage clientelism in politics? So the bottom line is, as we have always said, should we not cultivate honesty, moral accountability, grace, ideals of integrity, dignity, grace in our politics? These are the things we aspire to, but at the end of the day, how far are we from getting there? This is my take point. The Gopilal Hospital that fell sick recently. It is a major public infrastructure that was funded by the government of India at the cost of 835 million, inaugurated last year, July 2018. But media reports right after inauguration, even within 7-8 months, media reports of how the quality was compromised have been, afloat in the media, the reports. And so the people of Gopilal have said that one of the reasons they feel is the construction was rushed in order to be inaugurated by the incumbent government. Now, what does this mean? This was in July 31, 2018, the inauguration. And then this was in recently, July 15, 1 year, and you have the ceilings falling apart. Very interesting from Quinsel, safety of the people inside the Gopilal Hospital. I've been there, by the way, and it's a very scary, humongous building that doesn't really inspire confidence and safety and security when you're inside it. So where is the accountability? Who do you fix accountability on? Is it the contractor or the contractor's engineer, supervising engineers, project manager, tender committee, health officials, auditors? Who do you fix accountability on? Or is it on the moral responsibility, on the political leadership, the former prime minister, health minister, the minister of MOWHS? Because this money, 835 million, was Indian people's taxpayers' money, and they're going to ask for accountability to the Bhutanese government very soon. You people are not seem to be using our money seriously. And how do we respond? So these are the issues I think democracy also raises. A city called White Elephant. All of us know about the education city. It started in 2012 during deputy government time. Huge idea of 1,000 acres, a lot of things happened. The Education Act, the City Act was passed by Parliament. Some work happened. There was an account, city account in BNB, but the project was shut in 2014 when the new government came into power, took office, and when the National Land Commission said that the acquisition of land in Wong Sisina was illegal. And recently, MOWHS said it's closed. But then, whose resources did we waste? Did the resource belong to a political party? Did it belong to some individuals, or was it resources of the people of Bhutan? That is where the idea of accountability should come in. That's where we should transcend politics and political divides, political boundaries when you question about public resources, because those belong to the state, not to a political party or to individuals. Now, who accounts again? The board, DHO officials, again the political leadership, Prime Minister, the Education Minister at the time. These are questions I'm asking. And, look at other projects like PHPA1, Domestic Airport, Samrang Mega Farm, Sambujoka Water Treatment Plant. These are ailing. These projects are just prolonging taking in a lot of resources. So will we ever see anyone being taken to task? Will we ever see anyone explaining why the slow progress on this, wasteful projects? Now that's where the idea of political clientelism comes. For a country like Bhutan that is resource strapped all the time, the kind of politics that we see today promoted by political parties is quite interesting, because informally I call it shopping list politics, but what formally they call it clientelism, which means is the political parties or leaders giving material goods in return for electoral support. And this happens in the absence of ideological affinities that parties do not stand on, where personal contacts and our networks are more important. And it's the Philip Keffer, the economist with the World Bank, has said that clientelism is more pervasive in countries where ideological distinctions between parties are imperceptible. Problem here, because all the manifestos are the same, all the three political parties promise the same things, voters are lost. So what do? You give to the political party you feel you're closest to, maybe because your cousin is participating or your uncle is participating, right? So what is political clientelism? So imaginary party, you have a party one that goes to community and says, see, I'll give you smartphones to all the households if you vote for me. Another party goes and says, I'll give you Jersey cows to all the rural households if you vote for me. So, the voters are basically torn between two, handouts. Okay. By the way, PHP, just imaginary party it's a power-hungry party. APHP is another power-hungry party. This bargain leads to establishment of patronage. You have a patron and you have a client. So the clientelist parties, they rely on brokers, intermediaries, spies, campaign workers to monitor and, voters and the inclinations. Okay. Look at another example. PDP will increase CTG to 5 million from 2 million. Introduce public transport in all Georgs. Is that necessary? PDP will ensure every Georg has a fuel depot. Are those necessary? So we're looking at public resources because this is strictly tied to what we have in our treasury. Then DNT's vehicle quota, 15 lakhs. This is very interesting, for those who have completed 10 years. And then those who have completed 20 years, it increases, 30 to 40 years, it just goes. So this is what I call reckless vote buying strategies. PDP's pledge, the current 2 million a year, if it is increased, to 5 million a year, that means you are giving 10 million a year. Current, you're giving 50 million a year to a Georg, which means 205 Georgs, 2.5 billion. Do you have the capacity? Add to this, the capital allocation to LG has increased 50% with 12 fiber plan. Do we have the capacity in the local governments to handle this kind of money? Are we looking at chaotic execution law? Is there ability to monitor and evaluate and audit public works in the LGs, the local governments? These are the questions that we are looking at. Similarly, DNTs, if you look at, the increase in vehicle quota, it leads to, I'm giving a hypothetical sense, a lot of expenditure. What would we achieve by giving vehicle quota to, corporate employees and civil servants? You're just pleasing them, isn't it? To be very, honestly, you're just pleasing your vote base. And how does it contribute to Bhutan's growth? It doesn't. It would not contribute to the country's growth. However, clientelism is not new. Materially oriented political strategies, even the US, they have the idea of pork barrel politics, okay, where huge promises are made on infrastructure that are totally useless, do not contribute to the public growth, the growth of the country. In India, a lot of money continues to change hand. And even in Bhutan, I think we have heard of, money doing rounds during political campaigns, right? Clientelism in Bhutan, the patron, the diadetic alliance is involving two people, unequal status, power, resources. So you have a dasho who goes to the villages, and then you have the Misering Yamchung at the end of the different spectrum, that unequal relationship. So the dasho is there, and the Misering Yamchung is expecting a lot, from him, and says, I'll give you my boat, no, and then but the beauty later I'll come is that, the commitment is very poor in this relationship, clientelism, because you can ranage. When you go to the ballot box, I might have promised my vote to PDP, but I can tell, I can go and vote for DPT or DNT or BKP, That's the beauty of the ballot box. So basically, it's a win-win bargain. It seems like win-win bargain, but it damages democracy. Okay? So the patronage is the use of distribution, state resources, and known meritocratic basis for political gains I think all of us have seen this. So who pays for boleros, helicopters, free Wi-Fi, farm roads, and domestic airports? It's your money and my money now. That is with the National Treasury. This is public resource belongs to the people of Bhutan, right? And we are just being given back our own money in the forms of boleros and in the forms of free Wi-Fi and whatever, So politics basically leads to this kind of, and then it's an easy option, by the way. When a political party doesn't have an ideology, a policy-based, a programmatic-based, stand, then it's very easy to go to a shopping list and say, look, this is what I'm going to deliver if you support me, right? So, DPT is instantly remembered for domestic airports, PDP for helicopters and boleros. We do not remember of any. Do you remember any policy credentials on these parties? Not really, right? Very vague to think of what policies this past two governments, made. But then you can remember a lot of, things they delivered. So that is clientelism law. It has, like I said, lack of mutual, trust. With permission from my moderator, can I take additional few minutes, because I don't want to leave halfway through. I'm very sorry. So clientelism involves, reciprocal and voluntarism, but it also exploitation and domination of the poor people who do not understand how politics works, right? For them, if you go to the rural areas of Bhutan, politics means by the time the elections arrive, a lot of people are just warmed up. They feel good because Darwin, a lot of Sarahs are coming. No, that's the thing. So the client will be full of opportunities and defections at the same time. So it leads to a volatile electorate, fragile, constituencies, and problem of commitments, right? So we were not building a core constituent based on ideas and policies. So consequences of clientelism is that, parties, they are less effective in legislature because a lot of time they spend looking for resources. Our own MPs looking for resources to fulfill their commitment, right? They rush public works to showcase achievements because they have promised you have to better show it in 5 years. This often compromises the quality of public work. And then also, high corruption has been noticed in clientelist models now. Diversion of resources to fulfill promises. Clientelism also linked to poverty and inequality. And, it undermines democracy. So a lot of MPs, I'm sure, would have told you, that people think that job of an MP is to recharge their phones, arrange hospital, appointments, get their children enrolled in schools. I've had my MP friends telling me this, MP no, so they are coming from the city, please come and pick us up at the bus stand. So, but then you're deflecting them from the real core workload. Consequences of it slows economic development, impairs democracy, and allows dictators to hold on to power. That's what, according to Susan Stokes, another scholar on clientelism. It also undermines the capacity of the bureaucracy law because the government in power has already promised so many things. It often comes in confrontation with the bureaucracy that otherwise gives a good check and balance to the elected governments. And the more party-specific clients, the more divided supporters will be, right? So then what can be done? So I'm saying transition from clientelist to programmatic policy, issue-based politics. I think this is what we should all aspire to. A good political party should aspire to, so that people are able to think themselves as citizens who receive public services for the taxes they are paying to the state, rather than who are receiving freebies and special favors for having bargained their votes. And policies must drive electoral outcomes, not the shopping list. State must impose significant barriers to patronage, including strategic vote buying. Okay, we have to demand moral responsibility, by the way, from our elected leaders. Right now, because we feel a compassionate society, we just let things be. It doesn't matter. But I think that is going to damage our democracy. We cannot afford. If somebody, a political leadership requires to be fixed, even taken to the court, we have to demand that as awakened electorate, as awakened citizens. Transparency in public spending processes, data on public procurement from planning to delivery of services. And also, we should have public or other authorities outside the system to be allowed to question government spending. Some global practices I'll quickly run through is the public finance monitoring systems that have been instituted in certain democracies. We could do something similar so that the elected government is held accountable through stringent financial scrutiny. Public finance monitoring portal developed by the UN system in Serbia is a good example where people keep track of the public spending. And then public expenditure tracking system, that's PETS, another very good methodology for tracking public expenditure, so that you're able to take care and look at the process of the flow, and make sure that the budget do not get diverted to things that are not meant. Social audits, participatory process, through committee members monitor the implementation. Very important now, idea of social audit, because of the empowerment of LGs in terms of spending 50% of the allocated 5-year budget. And CSOs could play a big role here, community-based monitoring and evaluation systems. Participatory budgeting is another very important, so where the citizens come together, decision-making, allocating and monitoring of public spending is a big thing. The studies have shown that participatory budgeting leads to significant shifts in government spending toward priorities, directly benefit the poor and the communities. Strengthening local governments, I think in our case, it makes a special case now, because 50%, like I said, and by the way, they are apolitical in nature, which means they can set right priorities. They can set very apolitical, neutral priorities, which are not based on the party manifestos or party interest. So the voter question, we have already got basic good services, how do we add value? That's what voters should be asking. See, we have already got, the government, the state has already given us, 5-year plans deliver goods and services, but what would a political party add value to our quality of our lives? That's the question that our people should be asking. So recently, NC questioned the LG capacity in during the recent parliament session. GNS Secretariat, this is what I've always said, should own the 5-year plans, and it should be GNS Secretariat that should be taking the 5-year plans to the GEOX for public consultations, and not an elected leader. Totally wrong. When an elected prime minister goes around taking the document and giving wrong perception to the people that this is done by me, my government, that's wrong. We should have GNHC taking the ownership of 5-year plans, so that you ensure neutrality, you ensure the apolitical interest in it. And by the way, it also falls in the end of the 5-year. Strengthening the role of the media again here. How do we strengthen the media's role in public finance reporting? Media should report those suspicions to the public. Spark debates. For example, Galliflow Hospital, wonderful work done by Quinsel, and other media, for raising this issue. Voter education should continue to be, must see better links between policy promises and implementation, so that people are likely to sacrifice the short-term gains for long-term, preferred policy outcomes. This is where a good, I think, democracy should eventually head, says Janila. And thank you so much, Trish Delela, for listening to me.